Before we get into solving compound inequalities, we need to review or learn some interval notation. So a quick review on interval notation. Whenever you're seeing parentheses, that is referring to, when we're graphing on the number line, that's referring to open circles. And open circles means that that point does not include the endpoints. So you can write that in, does not include the endpoints that you are graphing. Also, just good to know, when we're graphing an infinity, when our number line is going on forever in one direction, that whenever you have infinity in interval notation, that's going to include a parentheses as well, because I guess infinity is going on forever and you never quite get that endpoint. When you have brackets, that is referring to closed circles on the number line when we graph it. So though that does include your endpoints. So parentheses are open, does not include endpoints. Brackets are closed, they do include the endpoints. Let's do a couple of examples. If you are given the inequality x is greater than or equal to 2, on a number line, for those of you who are picture people like me, this is what it's going to look like. I'm just going to drop a 0 somewhere, and I'm comparing it to 2, so here would be a 2. If I was graphing this on the number line, I would be starting at the 2. This is greater than or equal to 2, so I'm going to have a closed circle, and my arrow is going to go to the right because I want all of those values that are bigger than or equal to 2. So that's what my number line looks like. What would that look like in interval notation? Well, let's see. I always go from the left to the right. On the left side, well, my smallest possible number is 2, so that would be 2. It is going to be a bracket because that 2 is included. 2 is an A-OK number. And then I'm going to separate them with a comma. And then my largest value, I don't have a largest value. It just goes on for infinity. So I'm going to write the infinity sign. That's kind of a bad looking infinity sign. We'll go with it. And whenever I'm using the infinity sign, I'm using the parentheses. So my smallest value is 2 and my largest value is positive infinity. All right, my next inequality, let's see what happens when x is greater than 2. Okay, well, on my number line, I'm gonna go ahead, I'll drop a 0 here, and here will be my 2. Let's see, my smallest value will be at 2, and this will be an open circle because 2 in this case is not included. It has to be 2.1 or 2.2 or whatever. My arrow is gonna go to the right because I want all values bigger than 2. So that's what it looks like as a picture. And an interval notation, okay, my smallest value is still 2. So there's my 2, but I'm gonna use parentheses because that's indicating that 2 in this case is not included. Has to be slightly bigger than 2, and then separated by a comma. And then my largest value in this case is still going to be positive infinity. Man, my infinity signs are terrible. And then we'll, whenever we use infinity, we're going to use the parentheses. Okay, what about this next one? 1 is smaller than a value, but the value is smaller than or equal to 5. This would be a compound inequality because I'm comparing it with two different things. Well, let's see. I'm going to drop, let's see, here's be my 1. Here's be my 0. I'll drop a 0 here too. And then 5, I need to go up to 5. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here would be 5, and then 6 and 7 and so on. Okay, as a picture, let's see, 1. Here would be an open circle because my value is bigger than 1, so it doesn't include 1. My biggest value would be 5, and that would be a closed circle because 5 is A-OK. And then it includes all of these values in between 1 and 5. So 2, 3, 4, and all of those little fractions and decimals in between. Great, so there's what it looks like as a picture. Interval notation, let's see, again, I'm going from smallest to biggest number. My smallest value is 1. My biggest value is 5, so 1 comma 5. Let's see, and my 1 is not included, so parentheses, and my 5 is included, bracket. All right, my next one is a little bit different because I have an or here. Let's see, I have two different cases. X is smaller than -3, or x is greater than or equal to 4. Okay, well, let's go ahead and graph it and see what we get. Let's see, I know I have a -3, x is smaller than -3, so I'll put -3 here. Then here's -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, I'm going to start with this guy right here. X is smaller than -3, so I'll drop, here's my -3. -3 is not included, so it's open. X is smaller than that, so I'm looking at all of these values that are going to the left. So -4, -5, so on, all the way toward -infinity is what we call that. Infinity in the negative direction. Now here's my second statement, or x is greater than or equal to 4. So here's my 4. 4 is included, so it'll be shaded. And I'm looking for values that are bigger than 4. So those are going to the right, toward positive infinity. I have both of these cases, but it's an or statement, so one or the other can be true. Well, in this statement, I'm actually gonna have two different interval notations because these don't overlap at all. So I'm gonna do my first interval notation first. My smallest value way over here is -infinity. My smallest number possible in the negative direction. Infinity is always parentheses, comma. My next value would be at -3. And -3 is open circle, it's not included, so that would be comma. And then I'm going to connect these two statements with an or. This is or. The actual symbol for this is a union symbol. It looks like a U, but for now you can just write or. And then my next interval notation, I'm going to describe this situation. So this situation, the smallest number is 4, comma, and then I'm going all the way up to infinity. And then my 4 is closed, so it's included, and my infinity is always a parentheses. So sometimes you'll get a kind of a long interval notation statement, and that's fine. Let's do a bit of practice. I'll go ahead and do 1 and 4 with you, going to the opposite of what we just did, going from interval notation back into an inequality. And then you can go ahead and practice those as well, and I'll show you the answers. So number 1, interval notation says -5, 8. Well, if you're a picture person, you can go ahead and jot a little picture. Here's my 0. I'm going to do a -5, and I'll do an 8 over here. Let's see, -5 would be an open circle, and it's going all the way up to 8 closed circles. So it's including all of these values in between -5 and all the way up to 8. Okay, how would I write that as an inequality? Well, let's see, my smallest number is -5. And then I'm looking for all of the values, all of the x unknown values in between -5 and 8. -5 is not included, so it would be that symbol. And then 8 is included, so it would be that symbol, okay? So all of my values have to be bigger than -5, but smaller than or equal to 8. Let's go down and do number 4 because that contains like a little weird, negative infinity sign. What does that look like? If you are a picture person, you can jot down a picture. I'm going to do it down here because I just don't have tons of room. Let's see, here's my 0. I'll drop a -2. And let's see, this is telling me that my smallest numbers is -infinity. So that means all of these values all the way up here going to and ending at -2. So I'm going to -2, and that is a open circle. So if I were drawing it, it would look like that. Well, how would I write that as an inequality? I'm comparing my unknown value, x, to -2. We usually like to write our unknown value first. And is x smaller than or greater than -2? Well, I'm looking for all the values that are less than -2. So the little crocodile is pointing at the -2. The -2 is bigger, and we have an open circle, so it is that symbol right there. So if it helps you, go ahead and jot down a picture if you're a picture person. So in this column, go ahead and write it from interval notation into your inequality notation. And then in 7 through 12, go ahead and practice inequality notation going to interval notation. Pause the video and then check on back and check your answers.